Ladies and gentlemen, grace and peace to all you guys. I'm going to start off with Matthew 21:22. It says, "And all things, whatsoever you ask in prayer, believing, you shall receive." And it's a very powerful thing that the scripture is talking about. And what's very interesting about that is that actually translates into the movie Glass. And as you can see, this is going to be a brief review of Glass. So Glass involved a number of principal characters. One was Elijah, the other one is David Dunn, and the last one is Kevin as well. And these three characters, we find out, are interlinked within different stories. Unbreakable Split being the preceding stories. They are actually linked to one another. Kevin Crumb's father dies in the train crash that Elijah actually instigated, which David Dunn actually survives. So it's a really interesting connection between all three characters. But what makes all three characters so very convincing is the belief that they have in themselves and therefore have these sort of superhuman abilities. And that goes right back to Matthew 21:22. All things whatsoever you ask in prayer, believing, you shall receive. It really reminds me of spiritual connection with Christianity and faith, belief, whether it's belief in oneself or belief in God, and these supernatural things that are done as a result of faith and belief. And basically, the premise behind Unbreakable and Split and Glass is this premise that these individuals so believe in these supernatural capabilities that they have that they're able to do supernatural things. And similarly for the Christian, having supernatural abilities we have because we trust and believe in a supernatural source of these abilities. We're able to do supernatural things, and it goes beyond our own bodies. And Glass, basically director M. Night Shyamalan is actually exploring this throughout Glass. And what's interesting about Glass and the movie Glass, as we get more background on these characters, is that this movie explores that faith, that belief in these people being superheroes. And that basically M. Night Shyamalan is actually telling us and informing us that we all, as human beings, have this capability to go beyond what we naturally have. And because of belief, either in ourselves or in a greater source, we can actually tap into that and actually go into capabilities that we didn't think we have. And the commentary doesn't stop there. It talks also about the system or the world actually trying to keep us back, hold us back from actually exploring those abilities and faith and belief in ourselves. And ultimately, these three characters are murdered at the end of the movie by the government, a special section of the government, a special section of society that doesn't want people to actually go to their full potential. Because more people who know about these abilities and capabilities will actually try to actualize them and actually make it reality. And I believe there's a ton of things I can say about this, and even in the Christian walk or even beyond the Christian walk, that I think a lot of us are actually still in cages and are oppressed, and just the way how the world is engineered by the devil and therefore by extension people in power, for us not to soar, not to explore our full capabilities, not to heal ourselves. If you ever go and read or watch actually on YouTube Dr. Joe Dispenza talking about the capabilities of our minds to heal our own bodies without any medication, just by pure belief, is amazing. I mean, you have to tap into a source, and for me it's God, but it just shows. And if you pray certain prayers and you pray prayers to God, or you have this certain belief within yourself that things can be actualized, they actually are. And this is the capabilities, really scratching the surface of human capability. And of course, the world, the people who run the world, don't want you to know this. And so in a way, M. Night Shyamalan is actually trying to encourage you, just like Zack Snyder does, which we'll get to Zack Snyder in a minute, that you have a lot more power than you think you have, but you have been indoctrinated in a world that says you're powerless. You've been indoctrinated in a world that says you can only fit into this order, this particular way of doing things. And so I try to encourage a lot of people, including Christian brethren, because a lot of Christian brethren who don't have that faith, they don't have that belief, that whether it's self-belief or whether it's belief in God, whatever it is, when you start to actualize that belief and put it into engineer it, it is very, very powerful. And so the present circumstance I have with my mom, for example, where I'm praying for her healing, is pushing me to another level where by trusting and believing in something, when you truly believe in something, when you really have faith in something, it actually actualizes and becomes a reality. And these are things that people don't know. And literally, M. Night Shyamalan is actually speaking to that. Even though these characters were eventually murdered, David Dunn, Elijah, and Kevin, they ultimately got murdered at the end of the movie. It's interesting that Mr. Glass, which is Elijah, was able to still leak the footage of them so they inspire people to look beyond. And I think a lot of times we have these so-called lights or stars in our universe, but they seem like shining lights for us to aspire towards, whether they're athletes or whoever they are. But it's engineered in such a way that it makes us deify them as gods and make us think that we cannot do what they're doing. No matter what they say to us, and no matter what they tell us, we don't believe that. We believe they're separate to us, but they are pretty much us. We can do exactly the same things they are doing. They're no different human beings than we are, and we have to understand that and actualize it, and we can actually go beyond them and do things greater than they are doing. And so it's a very empowering film that is somewhat. It's a film that is actually subversive in many respects that M. Night Shyamalan is actually doing, because he's sort of commenting like Zack Snyder's commenting on the superhero genre and how it came, and from what Zack Snyder came from Greek mythology, but M. Night Shyamalan came from an original sort of commentary on the human psyche. So he took a totally different approach that Zack Snyder took more of a comic booky approach, whereas M. Night Shyamalan took more of a different sort of approach to it, and I really enjoyed it. I think a lot of people were disappointed that the major characters, this is a spoiler review, that the major characters actually died at the end of the movie, but I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that bittersweet feeling at the end of the movie, because it showed a number of different things. It showed that this story could actually be true. That is to say that the inspiration for the story is basically how human nature is. If we see something that is too unnatural, too powerful, no matter what it is, we look to capture it. And if we can't capture it, we try to destroy it. And that's why Christians die a lot in the world. Christians are dying a lot in the world because we start to do supernatural things, manifest Christ in a supernatural way. And once you start to fully manifest Christ, now all of these institutions and stuff look stupid, and all this medicine and stuff looks, you can't make money off of it. The systems now are all challenged. So what do we have to do to check it back into balance? You have to eliminate these people. So it speaks to the reality of what is coming up and what is happening. When religion and Christianity and all these other religions are just money-making events and mythos, it's okay. Once the mythos starts to become reality and people start manifesting these things, it's not okay anymore. And so that's the kind of, you want to make it an opiate for the masses. And it's ironic that the word opiate is what is used, because my mom is using an opiate right now. And again, the opiates don't help you. They actually hinder you more than anything else. So it's just like one of those things which, and by the way, you guys can pray for my mom effectively, please. Effectual prayers, please. Not just a prayer for prayer's sake. But I'm just saying to you guys that I think Glass is a really great movie to take in, because it's literally a commentary on us and us living to our potential. And whether it's for good or for evil, as you look at these characters, which are much more complex than you think. For example, Kevin character is a lot more complex. When you look at David Dunn's character, it's also a very complex character. It's not a straightforward character. All these characters have a background, and all these characters became what they were because of certain circumstances that confronted them and forced them into a certain type of mindset. When we look at athletes, for example, you look at boxers, for example, or athletes that run and train, you can see how the mental aspect of the human psyche plays into how these guys do so well. You look at the top tier athletes, whether it's in football or whatever, the mental aspect of their behavior. I think of Sean Porter in boxing, how this guy just takes a hit and keeps coming. Is a mental and a physical combination, as well as a spiritual combination, that this guy has, where he can go through those things. And again, what I'm trying to tell you guys is that a lot of things are mostly mental. It's really your faith and your belief that actually keeps. Okay, I'll give you a perfect example of mental. When most of you go to sleep tonight, well, it's morning now where I live, but when most of you go to sleep tonight, you're going to assume that you're going to wake up tomorrow, and because of that, you're going to do so. And you don't understand that most of that's because of faith or belief that you will wake up the next day. You're not guaranteed to wake up the next day. Something can go wrong in the middle of your sleep and you can die. Or you could wake up very sick, very ill. A lot of you don't think of it like that because you just don't think it's possible. You think, I'm going to sleep tonight, I'm waking up normal the next day. Unless you've been very ill and you realize from day to day it's different. And you would not, you wouldn't take that for granted. But the fact that you take it for granted shows the faith you have. And so it's done. Now, if you wake up, if you were somebody who's sick and in between you don't know if you're going to wake up good or not, and I've been down that road, your faith in you waking up well is different. You doubt yourself. A lot of sick people doubt themselves. They start to second guess things. And if you start to train your mind into thinking positively, you can actually heal yourself. But it goes beyond that. I think the real core healing, really the real healing, I think, happens with God. But yeah, even without acknowledging God, we have these inbuilt faculties that God has created in us that actually helps us to, actually, we call it willpower, helps us to just generate things and do things that we just, it's just unnatural stuff. It's like supernatural stuff. And so, or at least things that the average person doesn't see happening. So that's why faith and hope, I know people who are ill and they're still alive and they should be dead 100 million times over. And I think also having a community of people who actually believe something even encourages that event to turn over even more. So it's very powerful, and that's why sometimes people who are belonging to denominations and different groups of people or different religions are able to make things happen which would not normally happen otherwise. So faith has a lot to do with how people do things. Take, for instance, it took people a long time to break the 10-second barrier. But once one person did it, it became easier and easier for successive people to do so. And it just goes to show, again, faith and belief is all that was necessary. Once people can see that something is possible, now a ton more people can actually make it happen. So I say all of this to say that Glass is quite a movie. It involves a number of other things. It's not just about self-belief or even faith. It's about a lot of other things. But the point behind it is that at the end of the day, Glass proves a point to us. Now, it's whether you want to accept it or not, because it's a movie based on reality, kind of like, even though there's these supernatural things happening in it. And it's up to you and me to push the boundaries in that. That's why I always tell people, listen, ask God the most outlandish, crazy prayer and actually believe He will do it. Because you got to have confidence in God. Listen, man, God can do anything. With man, it's impossible. With God, all things are possible. And I say, push the boundaries on God. He's going to come true every time for you. Push the boundaries. I'm watching the realities change continuously. Even though I've given up this afternoon, I didn't put the pressure on. I didn't stay in prayer like that. 'Cause it was never dependent on me. It was always dependent on God, though. So when you make the request to God, the cool thing about it is you just have confidence in Him. He's going to come through. You have to have that confidence in Him, because it's not that He won't work, but He wants you to see what He's about to do. He wants you to see step by step what He's about to do, especially when He reveals something to you. So that's all I wanted to share with you guys on Glass. I thought that aspect that on Glass, I needed to share with you guys in a review. Glass is a pretty dope film. A lot of people said it was underwhelming to them, not for me. It was everything I wanted in a movie, because it's more of a drama. Glass is more of a drama. Again, it's not even an action flick. It's a drama flick, really. It reminds me of films such as the Kevin Spacey, Samuel L. Jackson film, where Samuel L. Jackson, was it Samuel L. Jackson? Or was it that other black actor from Training Day, dude? You guys know the name I'm talking about. I can't remember, but that film where the guy holds up everybody in a hospital because he wants his son to get a transplant. That film, Joe something. It's a drama. So Glass is a drama. It's a thriller. It's a drama, and if you look, it says genre, it's a thriller. So it's not so much about action. So if you're looking for action in Glass, that's not what you're going to get. But it's a fantastic psychological thriller or drama. I enjoyed it immensely. I would advise people to go see it. I'll see it multiple times. It's the film I wanted to go see. Enjoyed it immensely. I loved the soundtrack. Everything about it I loved. I think that M. Night Shyamalan has done an excellent job. Finished off the trilogy in fine style. It's a pity that, again, critics don't understand these movies. They talk about it as a choppy movie. No, this movie is covering different aspects, and there's different people in this movie, so you go from one place to another. But you're not just going, it's the related characters. All these characters in this movie are related. And it's lovely how it meshes together, and all the characters are found in the same spot. And then you see that what I like is the legacy is carried on through family members and friends. They carry on the legacy of these characters, and it's a sort of unifying theme between these three characters, that the world need to know that they exist. And it's so weird that Mr. Glass, his theme of the whole theme that he had from Since Unbreakable, that that these characters needed to exist, that the world needed to know they existed, and his whole purpose, and even the purpose of the Horde and the Beast and Kevin, and then of course David Dunn, the whole purpose behind these characters, I thought was beautiful. In a way, Glass reminds me of X-Men. In that the world doesn't want to know that there's these, people with these special abilities. It reminds me a bit of Justice League. It reminds me a bit of Batman v Superman, where the world kind of rejects these people with superhuman capabilities, these gods among men. In fact, you actually hear them speak about gods among men in Glass. That Shyamalan actually pulls gods among men, sort of thematic that you see in DC, and speaks about it. But again, gods among men is not the first time that's said. That's biblical as well. So it's kind of a crossover right there. But I really enjoyed that. I think that whether you look at it from a mythological point of view, and I love how he's commentary on comic books. How comic books are like our modern day Greek mythology or mythology period, which is Egyptian or whatever. And it's based on some sort of reality. And I love that he actually speaks on that reality, showing that it's still here in the present time. It's just not highlighted on the news media, etc. And I thought that was really cool because even when we look at the recent Aquaman movie, that's the kind of mythology that they're kind of playing with there and juxtaposing. So all of this just to say that I think that I really enjoyed the Glass movie. I was looking forward to it, and it is a movie to look forward to. Now, for some of you guys, you're probably expecting something different, but if you've seen Unbreakable and if you have seen Split, Glass really fits that last piece into that trilogy really nicely. So that's what I wanted to comment on. With respect to Aquaman, Aquaman has been killing it in the box office. Okay, it's been doing gunkers. It's in its fifth week, and in its fifth weekend, I mean, it raked in $12.745 million. Okay, so it's been doing that's domestically alone. So now, as of January 22nd, which was about 2 days ago, it's raked in $307,853,910. It's doing bunkers. It's doing tremendously well. Okay, tremendously well, and its worldwide kume at present, just to give you a little update, according to Box Office Mojo, it stands at $1.068 million, which is it's rolling up by I believe by the end of the weekend it'll have rolled past, if it hasn't rolled past already, because we don't know what the foreign box office will look like, but it will roll past The Dark Knight Rises, and it'll be the highest grossing DC movie period of all time. And then what happens after that is what everybody's asking. Well, we'll see how far it goes, but it has done bunkers well, and kudos to James Wan, Zack Snyder, Jason Momoa, William Dafoe, Amber Heard, Nicole Kidman, Patrick Wilson. Yaya. It's done very well, very, very well. But that leads to another point. There was an article done by Mick Jost, and this is from Joest, from Cinema Blend, and he makes the point that it's finally time for DC to release the Snyder Cut of Justice League. And here's his point. He's saying the fans were calling for it, but now that the Aquaman's success has been come on the charts, it's not a risk for them to put out, in his opinion, it's not a risk to put out the Snyder Cut now, because he's saying that, they've proven that Aquaman, is doing well. Wonder Woman, they got the second hit. This is the highest grossing movie. So no matter what happens with Justice League, it's not going to affect the rest of the movies because Aquaman has done well. So he's arguing that they should put out Justice League, but he's saying that Warner Bros. Probably won't do that. But honestly speaking, I think that they should, and I hope they do, because I haven't paid to see Aquaman in the cinema, and I probably won't. Okay. On that note, the Snyder Cut of Justice League would have ended with the death of a hero. They were saying that there's some story details where Batman would have been murdered at the end of it by Darkseid, and because someone on Vero posted up that Lewis and Clark would have a baby and name it Bruce, people thought that Ben Affleck's character would die at the end of Justice League. And that's an interesting take. I don't know how true it is. Zack Snyder, of course, did like that Vero account. Let me show you it right here. Where is it? This one right here. It's by Eric M. Blake. And it said, love it. Lewis concedes at the farmhouse where she and Clark catch up on lost time after his resurrection. She's pregnant throughout Justice League 2, and Batman saves her by trading gunfire with Darkseid, sacrificing himself to save the world. And she gives birth at the very end, and Lewis and Clark named their baby son Bruce. So in Justice League 2, I don't know how Eric M. Blake knew all of that, but Zack Snyder claps that. I don't know if that means he confirms it or not, but it seems so. So, yeah. Now, whether this is true or not, I can't really say. But what I would say is that I would highly like to see Justice League Snyder Cut. So if they do, Warner Bros. Does put it out, I will watch it, and then I will pay for Aquaman on DVD, because I probably won't see it in cinemas by the time they actually do think of putting it out there. But it is what it is. I also see that DC Titans is now going up on Netflix. So DC Titans is not only on DC Universe Online, but it's also seemingly on Netflix as well. So that's interesting. So that's pretty much the news that I wanted to share with you guys concerning movies. I haven't shared much because my mom's in the hospital. I'm praying God that she will be healed and recover. I've been praying for a while. Today I kind of eased off of the prayer. I was just watching different entertaining things because I was a little bit stressed out and stuff. But I encourage you guys to pray for her, okay? For her full recovery, as well as two other people. There's a lady in my street whose name is Sherry, and another gentleman named Mervin. So those are people, they work in threes. So just remember the three of them, all right? And your prayers, guys, that would be great. And I'll give you some follow-up information on how they're going. And remember, this is a supernatural thing. When you guys pray to God, it really manifests itself. So just think about that, all right? Anyways, man, I hope you guys have a good night. Enjoy this video. Leave your comments in the comment section below. Remember, you can donate and subscribe to my channel. To donate to my channel, I will receive things via Western Union or MoneyGram. Alright, guys. Have a good one.